Hey, what's up, everyone? This is another hangout. I haven't done a hangout in a little while, but I'm back once again with it's gonna be called Fallacies and Illogical Arguments Against Intelligent Design. Now, what prompted me to do this particular hangout was I was in a discussion with an atheist, and he was analyzing the argument that true empiricism was giving. And I think he just has some bad objections. Now, to start this hangout, oh, by the way, we have Nate Dogg, the server here. How you doing, man?
Doing very well.
All
Just kind
right,
of chilling, listening on. So go ahead.
all right, awesome. Good to have you with us. Well, anyway, to start this hangout, I'm going to screen share you a conversation I had with an atheist. So I'm about to screen share real quick here. And here's the hangout True had, and I was in this hangout too. Bring It Evolutionist number 8. Um, in response to the argument True has been giving, he says, point is, all the evidence we have shows that creation slash design requires the combination of physical and mental intelligent abilities. You believe that some non-physical existence defies that evidence. It's your burden to prove that. So either one, God exists physically, or two, God as defined is incoherent. And Truth's response, which I think was very good, he says, it's very simple. The intelligence is the cause, not the physical. To conflict a property of intelligence with the physical, such as hands or a screwdriver, is a fallacy of division. One could say that there may need to be physical interaction, but the creative thinking intelligence is a separate root property that is the universal cause called into question. The physical is merely merely a size secondary issue topic that acts on the directive foresight of the intelligence. The main objection is being over. The main objection that is being overlooked is that a mind is the observed missing causal linkage manipulating the physical. So the physical has no creative power, but the driving force behind it does, which is the intelligence. And Mark Bishop says, I think you have a misunderstanding of what the fallacy of division is. At best, you're misapplying it in this instance. But setting that aside, you can label intelligence the creative force or the most essential aspect behind anything that is created, but the objection still stands. Physical force is also required. You need both, and you're conveniently disregarding one part of the equation because it is damaging to your argument. Intelligence doesn't create anything other than ideas and concepts. We know of nothing that has ever been brought into existing, yet that's the claim you're making. And here's where I come in. I quote him here, and I tell him the physical medium, the physical force or object is what expresses slash is the express result of the creative process, not what is part of the creative process. Illustrating this in an analogy, we can take a painting, for example. A painting doesn't create, but rather is the express result of creation. So saying that intelligence doesn't create anything other than ideas and concepts is simply false and illogical. Physical force is the expression of the creative mind, not the creation of things. The creative process is immaterial and precedes its expression. It isn't defined by its expression. You cannot confuse the expression of the creative mind with the creative mind itself, and that is what I said he was doing. A physical entity without an intelligence is nothing more than an inanimate object. What you say is true that nothing is created by humans and everything is simply a result of physical processes, not of creative intelligence. Tasks are formed and accomplished all the time in computers without any need of physical force interaction, yet are the direct result of intelligence. In response, he says, if what I'm saying is true, then you should be able to present a list of created things that were merely conceptualized into existence. I don't feel like you or true empiricism are facing this objection reasonably. Creation is the product of both mental and physical capabilities. You labeling the physical aspect of the process as the expression does not eliminate the point that the physical aspect is still required. To use your own analogy about the painting, it is only created because someone conceptualized it and then physically painted it. The artist didn't paint it with his mind. So, by what physical mechanism did God use to create the universe? This is the inherent conundrum of your position. And I quote him a few times and then responds. And I said, I'm afraid that you're misunderstanding the argument from the outset then. The argument is about the inference to the best explanation behind phenomena we see, not about how things come into existence with or without a physical medium. We do not need to know how something is created to posit what is the best explanation behind it. Even if an intelligence uses a physical medium, it doesn't take away intelligence as the best explanation. For all we know, the agent or agents could have been an alien, or the agent or agents could have been disembodied beings. The use of the physical body is the product of the physical being, not the product of intelligence. You're confusing the two. Again, without the intelligence of a physical being, you simply have an inanimate object. And I quote him again, and when he talked about he didn't feel like I was looking at this reasonably, and I just tell him that isn't a logical necessity. Again, we see tasks accomplished all the time in computer programs without physical human interaction, such as if we schedule a program to automatically do maintenance at a specific time once per week. We don't need to be physically involved for the program to run every week, yet the task it accomplishes is still a product of intelligence. It is you, sir, who isn't facing this issue reasonably. And I quote him here about when he was criticizing my painting about the analogy. And I respond to him by saying, this tells me all I need to know, that you either do not understand the argument or you're intentionally being intellectually dishonest. The ID argument isn't an attempt to posit specifically God or gods as the best explanation. It isn't an attempt to posit any specific intelligent agent as the best explanation, but only an argument to posit an intelligent agent or agents as the best explanation. We do not need to know who or what the intelligent agent is, nor do we need to know how the agent creates to posit an intelligent as the best explanation. And he says, accusations or insinuations of intellectual dishonesty only lend to a combative discussion. I will deal with your rebuttals charitably and in good faith. I understand the argument just fine, but perhaps you don't understand the objection. Although I don't necessarily agree that intelligence is an inference to the best explanation, I will grant it for the sake of discussion. I'm not excluding intelligence. I'm saying that we recognize design and or the product of intelligence by its physical attributes. We also know that it takes physical interaction to produce those physical attributes. These things can't be detached from one another in a coherent argument. The only way idea is comprehensible is if the designer/intelligent agent exists physically. It's really no different than your painting analogy. It is incoherent to attribute a design to intelligence absent the physical medium. I said, I didn't accuse you of anything. I just simply said one of two things is happening. I do understand your objection, and it's extremely weak because the objection isn't focusing on the relevant issue, the inference to the best explanation. Your objection rather is focusing on how something is created in regards to how an intelligent agent creates something. Then I quote here something he said, and then I respond by saying, this is nothing more than begging a question. This is the same kind of reasoning illogical atheists have given to suggest that an immaterial God must not exist. Honest atheists have even admitted that they cannot disprove the possibility an immaterial being or beings existed to create the physical universe. Your objection is amateur at best. Just because we see things in our experience made with a physical medium does not mean all things exist were made with a physical medium. Also, since you're appealing to physicality, the intelligent agent could be a physical alien. But even then, you're still dealing with an intelligent agent, period. So your objection is altogether terrible because not only does it not necessitate the creation of what we see must have come from a physical agent, but it also does not go against intelligence as a general rule, even if you appeal to physicality as the intelligent agent or agents could have possibly been alien or aliens. And okay, um, let's see. All right, and all right. I also said, I call your objection terrible not to be dismissive, but because it is terrible. ID is not, hold on. Okay, ID is not arguing for how something is designed, but only arguing that the inference to the best explanation of what we see is best explained by an intelligent agent. Arguing how an agent designs something is irrelevant because even if you could rationally dismiss disembodied agent, which you can't, you certainly cannot dismiss an intelligent agent as a general rule. The only thing which would be argued against is a specific kind of agent, an immaterial being or beings, not an intelligent agent in general, which is all the ID argument is about. Just because you think the concept of an immaterial being created something is irrational doesn't make it irrational. That is simply a burden you cannot substantiate. And then I'll quote him on something he said here, and then I'll respond by saying, this is a totally separate argument from the ID argument. Arguing how an intelligent agent creates has nothing to do with the argument for intelligent design. As an aside, your argument assumes materialism as the only logical explanation for our existence. Now, if you want to have that argument, that can be held at a different time and place. For now, the only thing relevant is what the design argument is positing, the inference to the best explanation. And he asked me to please explain exactly what is so terrible about objection to the idea of intelligence void of a physical medium. Please be succinct and specific. And I just tell him, if you want to discuss this at a hangout at some point, that would be much better for my personal preference, as I do not like very long comment exchanges. And that brings us to this hangout right here. So anyway, hold on. Trying to get this thing to stop presenting. Were you about to say something, Nate?
Oh, yeah. I think your voice broke a little bit with the mic. What I was going to say is, I don't think this guy really comes into Google Hangouts to begin with. I personally have never seen him there. Yeah, that's all I'm pretty much going to say. I don't know if you're going to get what you're looking for. He pretty much just leaves comments. So you're probably just going to have to settle for nothing, anything better, basically, at that point. Unless if today's the day where, he wants to show up, but I personally have never seen that happen. It would be an interesting discussion, though, to watch you both kind of hash it out and then explain your case.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I agree. And as I was reading this, a good friend of mine, Haley, popped into the discussion. So I just want to say hi to Haley, and it's good to see you, sister. But anyway, yeah, I agree that he doesn't come in the hangouts very often. Most of the time, he just leaves these drive-by comments like he just, like he thinks he just has what he's saying down packed. But rarely does he actually enter the discussion and really deal with the stuff directly. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna actually leave this link inside the. He might not even show up real soon, but I'm going to leave this link inside the comment here that I was having with them with the discussion, and I'm gonna see if he actually shows up. So let's see. go ahead and reply to him and just leave the Hangout link. You want to discuss this? I have a Hangout going on right now. And I'm leaving the link here for him. So he's gonna know whether he's gonna see the link because I replied to his comment. He's gonna know. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be interesting if he does show up because normally he talks a lot. I've seen him in a lot of discussions on other videos. Usually it's with the presuppositionalist. He's always just on the YouTube channel looking to see who's talking about what in the realm or circle of Christianity and the great debate against science and all that stuff. So, I personally just have never heard the guy come in and speak, so that would be a shocker for me.
Oh, absolutely. And but to address this point right here, he says, please explain exactly what is so terrible about objecting to the idea of intelligence void of a physical medium. Well, the reason why that objection is so terrible is because it assumes only materialism. Um, there we can only know so much in this plane of existence in our human experience. We can only see and access so much, but it does not mean in any way that there isn't something beyond our plane of existence. That's the reason why it's just a bad objection, because you would have to only assume what we experience here is the only sort of plane which exists, but there's no way he can back that up. Um, Here's the thing: the theist, at least I guess an honest atheist can accept the possibility of an immaterial plane, but the thing about the theist is the theist accepts the possibility of the immaterial plane. Um, Hey, bro, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
Yeah, but as I was saying, hey, this by the way is Nate Dogg, and I'm not gonna say out loud who AJF is. I'll just kind of type it in the text chat here.
Yeah, no, it sounds like already you guys seem to know each other right off the bat. AJF, are you a Christian, atheist, agnostic? What's your story, man?
I'm Christian.
Oh, okay, cool, man. There's a lot of background echo coming from your mic, so I don't know if that's something with the live feed or if it's your end, but someone may want to fix that.
Well, I'm doing this hangout from outside, so it could be me. But if you hear some additional noise, that's what that is while I'm speaking.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, that could totally be it. But anyway, yeah, it's just kind of looking at the whole thing in general. This is all I'm pretty much going to say, and then I got to start getting out of here because I'm really tired, But one of the points you brought up is they assume from the get-go this naturalism that basically the universe is just a closed system and that only things physical can produce what we see today. Um, that gets in the whole question of empiricism or the empiricism worldview and how it can know anything at that point is beyond me because there are things that are going to be questionable at our foundations that we just sort of take for granted. like, how do we know which one of our five senses prove that all our senses are valid, and stuff like that. And so where do you get truth from this worldview? I submit that is going to be very hard, and this is just basically my understanding where I come from. Some people come from the intelligent design background and explain it through that, which is okay. And they give a lot of this cosmology argument, and usually the objections to that is, well, then what caused God? They don't understand that what the argument is that it has to be an uncaused cause to start all these causes. And the cosmological argument, I believe that there's I think it's a lot deeper than people usually assume it to be. I think there's a lot more stuff there that's to be covered. I ought to be honest, I haven't fully taken the time to go back and refresh on it, but that's why I just kind of look at the worldviews themselves and focus more on that. Where can I cut up a tree and the word truth comes out empirically? And that's usually a problem. But when you open the Bible and you open God's Word, there's truth. So that's pretty much
where I'm going with that, man.
Yeah, I'll have more to say on that probably later, but this is kind of a long summer for me. There's definitely more to it than that. That's pretty much, I'm just giving it in a nutshell, but anyway, I got to get out of here. I got to start getting some sleep, So anyway,
all right, man.
You guys have a great conversation.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming by, and I appreciate your input here, man. Have a good night, man. God bless.
You got it. Later.
Yep. If you hear some background noise, I live by a train station, so yeah. If anybody knows that in the hangouts that I do, trains come by here very often, and you just hear train noise in the back. So you have to bear with me. But yeah, I think when people are constantly trying to distract from what the intelligent design argument is saying, because it's not trying to posit any specific intelligent agent at all, nor is it trying to posit how something is created. Rather, the only thing it's saying is that it's trying to posit an intelligence. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It's trying to say the inference to the best explanation of what we see is an intelligent agent of some sort. Who knows? The intelligent agent could be an alien, could be a disembodied mind or mind. It could be a bunch of aliens. We don't know. We don't. The question of the intelligent agent in the ID discussion, those are separate questions, which in many hangouts we do talk about, like, does God exist? Is only materialism tenable? Yeah, just a number of different discussions about God and atheism, to where we explore those sorts of questions. But to say that, well, we need to, if the agent or the intelligent agent is immaterial, we need to know how such an immaterial being could create a physical object, or how is that even possible? Because as such as otherwise, we can't posit that, and that's just ridiculous. Or just saying right off the bat without any way to prove it, that the concept of an immaterial being creating a physical object is incoherent. That's just ridiculous. Because in our limited human existence, we can only know and see so much. But I mean, it's just a basic amateur objection that's been dealt with over and over again. You can only know so much, but there's always things outside of what you do know that can be possible. Again, like an intelligent and a physical, at least in our on our physical plane, a physical entity without an intelligence is nothing more than an inanimate object. When you're dealing with intelligence, and you're dealing with a physical medium, you're dealing with the intelligence directing the physical medium. That's it. That's the point. The intelligence that directs the physical medium, and the physical medium is the expression of the creative, intelligent mind. That's what's happening here. It's not the physical medium is not defined. I mean, the intelligence is not defined by the physical medium. Rather, it's the directive force to the physical medium. And of course, when you're dealing with physical beings like human beings, you're going to have that physical force which acts, you know, as what's being directed by the intelligence. You're going to have that physical force element. But I mean, you don't need physical force every time for but even when you're dealing with humans who create things, you don't need physical force every time for something to happen. Like, for example, we can set a computer program to, I don't know, do maintenance once a week. Let's say we set a computer to do maintenance on itself at 5 o'clock in the morning. Every Monday morning at 5 o'clock a.m., the computer does self-maintenance on itself. It does like a virus check and adware, spyware check. It sees what it needs to clean out. Maybe it does a registry clean, all sorts of different things. We set this program to do these things. And every week you see this happening time and time again. Every week it's doing this checkup on itself automatically. Now it's performing tasks and is accomplishing things, and it's solved by a physical medium being involved. Every time, every week it's happening, it's automatically happening, on its own automatically. But the fact that, but it's still yet the product of intelligence. I mean, and so it's not logical to say that when something is created or something happens, it needs to be always facilitated with a physical interaction, so to speak. That's just illogical. Otherwise, we would need to physically program a computer to program a certain task every single time. We couldn't automatically have things, work a certain way. The reason why stuff is automatic is because that means it can act without, the human being making it happen. It can act on its own, but yet it's still the product of intelligence. You may try to say, well, maybe there was a physical element involved behind the beginning of it, which initiated the automatic processes. But the point is, for something to start, for a task to be accomplished, it's not true to say that every time you need a physical force for it to act on it. That is just not true. I mean, we are even getting to the point to where we can accomplish things by attaching a machine to our brains, and just by the machine reading brain waves, it's reacting to the brain waves and performing certain tasks. And we're not really physically doing anything. All we're doing is just giving certain thoughts or whatever, and the machine acts to whatever is going on in our body or what's ever going on in our brain, and it performs those relevant tasks. So, I mean, the physical element is just not a logical necessity, even when you're dealing with physical beings like human beings. And There's just so many bad objections that I've seen in this intelligent design, um, intelligent design critique, specifically the one that True Empiricism was giving. I mean, I put a link in the chat for people to come in and join this discussions. But I mean, it's no telling if anybody's going to come in. Maybe people are just going to possibly sit in the chat and be like, "Fallacy this, fallacy that," or just try to attack from the chat, but they don't want to come in here and talk. So, all right, let me see here. Those are physical actions, and the product of mouse and the product of mouse clicks or keyboard entries, right? Well, that's not the point. That's not the point. Yeah, the initial thing certainly involved physical interaction, but the sequential things are not physical. The point is, does a physical always need to be involved for something to happen? No. And that's just because you can't just look at the initiating action and just say, well, the physical always needs to be involved. We don't need to go into we don't need to just go into a computer program and at 5 o'clock in the morning, we don't need to physically enter, maintain computer at this time. We don't need to physically enter that into the program every morning. We don't need to physically do that. It can happen on its own after the initiating point. It can happen on its own every single week. And it's still performing tasks. It's information happening and it's still performing real tasks. It's still accomplishing real things. So, yes, for humans, the initiating thing may be a physical mechanism, but that doesn't mean that all things happen by way of the physical mechanism. I mean, yes, yeah, that when you take into account the physical mechanism, all you're really doing is saying just saying, well, that's just the product of the physical being. That's it. That's just a product of the physical being. That's not a product of intelligence. That has nothing to do with intelligence. I mean, for physical beings like human beings, the only sort of way that stuff can come about, the only sort of way that stuff can come about is by the physical interaction. What I mean, the intelligence working with the physical for it to come about, but that has nothing to do with intelligence itself, and it certainly has nothing to do with let's say, okay, maybe an intelligent agent, because even if you want to appeal to the physical argument, all I can do is say, well, maybe a physical alien, and create the world, or physical aliens create the world. All right, that's still an intelligence. You can just the only reason why people bring this physical aspect up is because they somehow think it's trying to argue against a specific kind of intelligent agent. What they're really doing is they're trying to argue against the consistently claimed immaterial aspect of God, which is the one most likely talked about in the Holy Bible, the immaterial transcended God, the immaterial transcended eternally existing agent. That's the reason why they're attacking that argument, because they're really trying to attack the God of the Bible in most cases. So they're really not dealing with the argument of intelligent design. Rather, they're trying to attack the God in the Bible. but they're not dealing with the concept of an intelligent agent behind the phenomena. They're just attacking a specific agent of intelligence. That's it. It's a laughable objection at best. I mean, even if I were to say, for the sake of argument, they were able to defeat the immaterial being creating physical things, they certainly have not defeated the intelligent design argument. So it's an irrelevant issue. That's a side issue anyway. But the important thing is the intelligence. Whether the intelligence directs a physical mechanism to create it, or whether there's a sort of disembodied agent that doesn't need a physical mechanism to direct to create something. Either way, you're still dealing with intelligence, period. Trying to smuggle in this how something is created does absolutely nothing to defeat the intelligent design argument. Nothing. See, I posted the link in the side chat. All you people here, talking all this nonsense in the side chat, can come in and discuss this. Because here's how it's going to be in my hangouts. I'm not going to even address you or whoever if you don't come in. I'm not going to address you. Not because I can't, because it's because you're wasting my time. If you don't want to come in and have a conversation directly with me about this, then you're not even worth me addressing. So you can leave your drive-by comments in the side chat. And I'm going to post the link right here again. You can leave your drive-by comments right here in the side chat. But if you don't want to come at me and go toe-to-toe with me in this room, then you're not worth my time in addressing. So you can sit here and talk all this yin-yang all you want in the side chat, but you got to come in here and back it up. And I'll be fair to you. I'll let you talk. We'll have a nice little exchange, and we'll see if y'all can do something besides being keyboard warriors. Let's see if you can go beyond that. This is a challenge to you in the side chat to, go beyond being keyboard warriors. Come over here and back your position up. So here's what I'm gonna do. Rather than continuing to talk about this and even mentioning y'all, I'm just gonna play some nice Bob Ross music, and I'm just gonna play it for a little bit until someone comes in here. So here we go. So AJF, what do you think about that, man? I'm tired of just addressing these people in the side chat that don't want to come in. They want to talk stupid in the side chat, but don't want to come in here and back up what they're saying. Just play Bob Ross music, man. That's all I'm gonna do. I was just asking, what do you think about these keyboard warriors, man?
Like, I think some of them know what they're talking about. It's just that I don't know why they don't actually want to come in the hangout.
Exactly. Well, we're just gonna sit up here and just play the music until they come in here. I'm not gonna even address them. Just enjoy the music, man. Y'all gonna sit here and enjoy this music, or y'all can stop listening to the hangout altogether, because this is all y'all worth at this point. It's just hearing some nice music. Y'all not even worth my opinions. So if y'all want to cut my viewership, then cut it right now and just listen to the music. Hey, do you have any music? Hold on, real quick. AJF, do you have any good music to suggest?
What?
I said, do you have any good music to suggest?
Elevator music.
Yeah, do you have anything that you can like post in the side chat and I'll play it? Because this is all they're gonna get is the music. I'm not going to read their comments in the side chat, and if they don't want to come here and discuss it, then they're just gonna get the music. So if you have a music selection you want to play, then we can play it.
All right. I'll try to find some.
All right. Until then, we're gonna go back to the Bob Ross theme. All right, we have another one that I'm about to play here. So we're going to cancel the Bob Ross music and we're going to play another selection. Oh yeah, this one is good. I love this one. This one's very good, AJF. I love this one. This was perfect, man. Y'all think I'm joking. All y'all gonna get is this music. Cause that's all y'all worth to me at this point. It's just the music. Y'all aren't worth my time. Y'all aren't worth my arguments. Y'all just sitting in here in the side chat, not even coming in. That's pretty much all y'all worth to me at this point. So here's some more music for you. All right, finally, someone comes in.
What's
See,
that?
that's why. That's why I like it when you come by, Hog Tie, because at least you come by and actually try to discuss these issues. Because I get just a bunch of nonsense in the side chat, and they don't ever want to come in.
Okay, well, good evening, all. And actually, what is going on? I literally don't even know. I've been doing sort of our post-supper stuff, and then I just had stopped by Steve's hangout to talk about genes and et cetera, et cetera. But then I noticed you had one running, so I clicked on it. Oh, you're 44 minutes into it, and then I started listening, and I hear music playing. Like, what's going on? And while you say that, I'm going to go ahead and read the chat so I can see what you're complaining about.
Yeah, the only thing is that if people are going to be talking a bunch of yin yang in the side chat, but they're not going to actually come in and discuss this like mature adults, and they're not even worth my time in addressing. So I said, rather than address their claims in the side chat and try to argue, back and forth and not have a direct, fluid discussion, I just kind of read what they say in the chat and then not talk about it here. Rather than waste my time doing that, I'm just going to play his music because that's all they're worth to me at this point.
It was pleasant as long as it's not copyrighted. And just let you know, Antonio, I think you're not with headphones today, so as I'm talking, I get like a wicked echo. So who in the chat, Jen? You're saying there's some people are talking yin yang. Who's got the best yin yang tonight in the chat?
Well, just anybody who's just sitting there, just posting comments and don't want to actually discuss this. Like people commonly. Well, sometimes Christopher Hitchslap comes in, but for some reason he's not coming in now. And then there's a few others there that commented who don't want to actually come in and discuss this.
All right, what were you? Did you have a topic? I'll let you know. I'm gonna whatever. If you want to sort of rope me into a conversation, I certainly don't mind. But I'm going to run away scared in not too many minutes. I'll try to do it in 10, 15 minutes kind of thing. But I was actually, like I say, we did our post-supper stuff, and I'm a little tired, but I saw you were up, so I figured, I'll join you. But
if you're tired, man.
No. Well, what was the topic? What was it? What was it?
All it was about is how I think that people have kind of attacked the wrong thing. When they're approaching intelligent design, specifically the argument that a true empiricism was given, and I feel like they approached it the wrong way. Like, for example, in the beginning of this hangout, I was reading an exchange I had between Mark Bishop and myself, and all I was the argument that's been given is that intelligent design is about the inference to the best explanation, and some of the objections I've been given, I've been hearing is that you can't say that the intelligence is like an immaterial sort of disembodied mind. because all we see in our human experience is intelligent agents with physical bodies like human beings creating things. And I just think that has nothing to do with what the intelligent design argument is saying. And that's
Okay,
kind of what I was going over.
okay. Let's start with that one then. And to let you know, just for context, I had heard Fiona on Fiona's channel. Fiona and True Empiricism did a one-on-one, and I'm going to say it was awful. It's almost to the point where I don't think those two should even talk to each other anymore. Like, they just simply, they're so raw with the history there that it's just like they simply cannot have a conversation together. I'll leave it to individuals to choose sides and say, well, it's 100% that person's fault, as people are inclined to do. And second, I did hear the majority of True Empiricism's most recent hangout, which included who was it at the beginning? I know there was a Desiree in the hangout for a while. Darwin's Deity was in there, or Dawkins, whatever name he went by that time. He was in there for a good part of the hangout. So I'd heard most of that hangout. So just for context, that just lets you know, so you don't have to sort of educate me too much. I have sort of familiar with those things. So let's go straight to that one then, about how people say, oh, but we see humans do these things, and you're arguing for a disembodied mind. And the response is, well, no, I didn't say disembodied mind. You're the one who brings up disembodied mind. I'm not arguing for disembodied mind. The conclusion of the intelligent design argument is, therefore, intelligence. It's not, the conclusion is not, therefore, disembodied mind. Does that sound right to you, Antonio?
Yes, that's 100% on the spot, man.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Do you, Antonio, I'm going to ask you two questions. Do you believe in a disembodied mind that is the creator of the universe?
I do.
Okay. Do you think that my life would be better off if I believed in that disembodied mind as creator of the universe?
Of course, as a Christian, I mean, I would feel that anyone would be better off. Of course.
Then why are you not arguing, or more, let's put it this way, why do you make the claim that you are not arguing for the truth of a disembodied mind that's the creator of the universe?
Well, I can and can talk about that in a separate conversation, but I mean the intelligent design argument specifically has nothing to do with that. And when they factor in a separate discussion with that, is where the problem comes in. Okay. I'm not saying I can or won't argue for it. I'm just saying that intelligent design doesn't argue for that. Okay,
you're right. It doesn't, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a dishonest argument. Faced with the prospect of coming up with a logical or observation or empirically based argument towards the particular disembodied mind that you believe in, and preaching a proper message of salvation, preaching the gospel message, and seeing that as like, well, oh, I can't convince people through logical argument this is the case. Many evangelicals adopt this approach that, well, instead I'm going to downshift and change lanes, and I'm going to argue for something completely different, something stopping short. And then when pressed for evidence about my real position, I'm going to put up my hands and shrug my shoulders and go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not arguing for that thing that is at the very core of my belief system that I think you should believe as well. It's a dishonest, that's at the heart of intelligent design, is that level of dishonesty.
That just seems to me just like kind of, I don't know, that just seems to me like you're sort of poisoning the well in a sense, because you're kind of like trying to like go at a person's character rather than, addressing the specific argument that is the intelligent design position.
Well, that's funny, because I said that the intelligent design argument is dishonest. It doesn't represent the person's actual stance. And before I'd done so, I made a point of checking that confirming that what your actual stance is. So there's no aspect of poisoning in there. It's me directly speaking to the argument and to the framing of the argument. So there's no poisoning of the well there at all by saying that there's something flawed in your character. I'll tell you what. I'll give you some contrast here. One example of poisoning the well would be, for example, telling people that your opponent doesn't believe what he's actually saying when your opponent is arguing for, say, I'm trying to think of an example, like your opponent is claiming to lack belief in God, but your opponent is actually lying to you about that. In fact, your opponent does believe in God, but denies it in his unrighteousness. So everything he says from this point forward is bullshit. That would be an example of poisoning the well. We can move on to the next issue if you like. You had another criticism.
Well, here's the thing. The intelligent design argument isn't meant to represent someone's personal position any more than, people who argue for evolution is meant to represent someone's personal position, because evolution could mean that somebody might not think in any sort of being at all was behind it, or someone could believe that, the being that was behind it could have been God or something, like a theistic evolutionist, for example.
Yeah.
So it's not supposed to represent somebody's personal position any more than those who argue for evolution means evolution is supposed to represent someone's personal position. It's not supposed to represent the theological aspect of the person's position. It's not meant to do it. It's not supposed to. So, trying to say that the intelligent design argument is sort of a dishonest one to make, it's just not, it just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, you disagree with my characterization that it's dishonest. I guess where can we find our happy middle ground here? I think that are we at least agreeing that the argument does not argue towards a disembodied mind, and yet you do actually believe in a disembodied mind. And let's not refer to that as dishonest. Would that be fair?
Well, here's the thing. Whether I actually believe in a disembodied mind or whether they're actually supposed to argue for it or not is two different things. Because I could say, you can have somebody that's an agnostic, because I actually do know an agnostic who has problems with both intelligent design and evolution, but he believes that the intelligent design argument makes better sense, but he's not sold on it yet. So if he were to adopt the intelligent design position, because he thinks that that maybe aliens might have created the design position, he could be one who thinks aliens did it. So it just seems to me you're just trying to, I don't know if you're trying to connect the two together, or for some reason you can't seem to keep from putting the two together.
And sorry, connecting which two? What two things?
Intelligent design and what a person's theological position may be, because you already know what mine is. You know that I'm a Christian, all right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the case that I give for intelligent design would have anything to do with my Christianity any more than an agnostic who would argue intelligent design. Because an agnostic can reasonably argue that position if they wanted to, if they think it makes better sense than, let's say, evolution.
Well, let's try this instead then. Let's try having heard your description, your justifications for intelligent design, having heard true empiricisms, having heard it actually from a number of sources. Let's say I'm moved by that argument, and I say to you, Antonio, I'm going to agree with you. I do believe that there was an intelligent agent. Obviously, this stuff. I look at everything. I look at the trees. The trees are so perfectly designed to get nutrients up to the top leaves. That's amazing that even happens, because the nutrients are down in the soil. And how is it going to elevate them up? What system has it got for that? Well, they're dissolved in water, and then through osmotic pressure it gets pushed up some distance. And then there's other things, there's valves. It's amazing, the way flowers attract bees, the way hemoglobin works. There's 100 examples in my head. This clearly didn't happen by accident. And I'm not even going to go with my normal answer and say, well, obviously there's some process. I'll even go and say, well, there's an intelligent designer. And I'll tell you one thing that I find really amazing about what this intelligent, I hope you're happy I'm agreeing with you about this stuff, Antonio. And one thing I find absolutely, utterly mind-blowing amazing about what this designer did was somehow this designer was able to have life evolve over and speciate separately over periods of millions of years until a point about 8 or 10 million years ago, when it finally sort of, this designer had gotten to a point where we had this sort of very nondescript generic ape, and then it speciated off into the gorillas and the orangutan and the pan, and then that one very special species, the humans, and then of course the pan further speciated into the chimpanzee and the bonobo. But the fact that these amazing, powerful, intellectual, compassionate, artistic human being creatures were created through this process that meant starting with very simple life forms and going up and kind of molding this very generic ape creature, and then this very specialized ape ends up becoming us. I am amazed that this intelligent designer is able to do that. So are you comforted by my acceptance of the obvious conclusion of the intelligent design argument, Antonio?
I'm not sure what you mean. I really didn't understand what point you were trying to make with that at all.
Let me try to reword it then. And I appreciate the fair admission instead of just arguing, especially because I appreciate I sort of talked for a long time there. What I mean is
just saying that God intelligently designed the Earth to function through evolution.
Yeah, and specifically, because I mean, part of the majesty here is our enterprise, human beings. Like, we're amazing, like these things that we can do. Not that we're perfect, but it's amazing that, and there's no way you could look at human beings and how human beings work together to build the internet and all the things that we do. It's just so amazing. There's no way that I can believe this happened by chance. In fact, I do believe that there was an intelligent designer who had done these things. I say hypothetically. And I'm coupling this with the evidence that where humans came from is we are specialized apes. Just like the chimpanzee is a highly specialized ape, and the bonobo is a highly specialized ape, and the gorilla is a highly specialized ape. Humans are one of 5 current varieties of very highly specialized apes. And so now, Antonio, that you've convinced me there's an intelligent designer, I am amazed that humans came about by the process we obviously came about. We obviously came from apes, and I'm really impressed that this designer was able to fashion us from the apes. Does that make more sense?
I don't really know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that the design could have been done by evolution. I still don't get what point you're making.
No, the designer, I mean, the designer's behind it all, right? It's like when we look at a tree and we say, well, how does a tree get the nutrients to the top? And we look at the evidence, we take apart trees, we do experiments, we come to understand how the nutrients move to the top, and we say, that's amazing. That's what the designer did. That's clearly designed. And when we look at hemoglobin, or we look at ATP synthase, or any of those things, we look at it and we say, that's amazing. There's clearly an intelligent designer behind that. When I look at the fossil record and I see the obviousness that humans actually came from apes, I think it's amazing that the intelligent designer designed us to come about from apes. That's brilliant.
Well, I mean, wouldn't there be more added to what evolution says? You know, if it was done by wouldn't there be, if the evidence suggested that there was more to evolution? It seems like that would add more to the evolutionary idea than it seems like what it would do is it would add, not just some non-directed intelligence. It would add like a purpose or something.
Well, I don't believe in I don't know what you mean by non-directed intelligence. I'm saying that there's a designer who designed trees to work like trees, and designed bees to pollinate plants, and designed plants to, I look at the actual world, and when I see the design in nature, I see that this creator designed apes so that one subset of those apes would be human beings. I don't think that's an accident. I think that's a product of a plan from this overseeing intelligence.
So you think intelligent design could have been done by evolution? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying the evolution is the design. I'm saying that there's an intelligence behind evolution. right? All I'm doing, and again,
Mhm.
by the way, just to not lose us in the forest here, I don't think that's the case, right? I'm saying, Antonio, what do you think? If this is the logical conclusion, if you're saying the intelligent design argument is to look at the evidence, look at the real world, and then where you see design, to say, well, obviously there's an intelligence behind that. And when I look at the world, I see trees that are nourished by water and nutrients being drawn up the trunk, and I see plants being fertilized by bees, and I see evidence that the apes 8 million years ago split up into different groups, and eventually one of those groups became human. And I'm saying those things couldn't happen by accident. Those things happen because of the planning of an intelligent designer.
Well, then you wouldn't be talking about then at that point you wouldn't be talking about whatever the various forms of evolution are. You wouldn't be just talking about Darwinian evolution or evolution by common descent. You know, there would be more of a purpose behind it. You know, which would fit more into intelligent design, which suggests there was more of a specific purpose behind it. It wouldn't just be mere evolution at that point. It seems like you would have to sort of change or add to the definition of intelligent design or evolution to suggest what you're saying. So I still don't really know what point you're making.
Not really. It fits perfectly into both. I'm sorry, Joe wants to, if he thinks it's unclear, just let me give one more chance, Joe. Just so I want to address that one specific point. It's this actually fits perfectly in both evolution, common ancestry, and with intelligent design. Because what I'm saying is, the theory of evolution, including the notion of common ancestry, describes a system under which animals can separate and speciate separately, and then change over time to become different species that interact in different ways. It simply describes the process. It doesn't tell you, evolution or common ancestry doesn't tell you why those things happen. But when I look at that system of how things evolved, how things speciated, how humans, who are just apes, obviously we're a subset of apes, but we're special, like we have these amazing abilities, right? Evolution tells you how we came about, that is, we are descendants of ancient apes. But intelligent design tells you, when you see design in the world, know that there's an intelligence behind it. So I'm accepting both intelligent design and common ancestry, because what I'm saying about evolution is it's not an unguided process. This is part of an intelligent plan. If you don't, maybe Joe can.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Then you'd have to sort of add to evolution / intelligent design and try to blend them together. Then we would be talking about something a little different.
No, it's exact. That's my point. That's my point, Antonio. Exactly. Is that it's exactly the same. I'm adding nothing to evolution. All evolution says is what I'm trying to say here. If you I'm trying to think of another example. I don't want to. All evolution says, it's a description of the process, right?
There's no normative aspect to evolution. You can't.
Right.
There's no
there's no directing force
earlier.
or anything.
There's no teleonomic or teleological.
How does that help? No, all it is a description, right? Just like if maybe I do have to use a different thing. Like if we set up one of those Rube Goldberg machines, or like, did you see that guy lately who's got that musical instrument that's like marbles that are like go through these channels and fall on slots, and like you could look at this machine and say, well, I'm going to apply my understanding of physics to say, what is this machine going to do when I turn the crank, right? That's all evolution is. It's simply a description of the mechanisms and processes that lead to the observed diversity of life. It's got nothing to do, as Joe would say, it's not teleological or teleonomic. It's just, it doesn't say why evolution does those things, right? Evolution just said, or why biology does those things. Evolution just says, here's a description. You can have a group of animals, and then they get separated, and then these groups face this one group faces some selective pressure, and then the other group faces different selective pressure, and then after many generations they look a little different. Evolution just describes the process, but doesn't say why such a thing would happen. Intelligent design, all it says, what I'm hearing from you guys, is it says that we're looking at when you see an amazing system that's clearly not random, that is clearly rule-based, it's clearly designed, then know that there's an intelligence behind it. So I don't have to add anything to either of those systems. I can look at the facts of common ancestry and of evolution and say that is what has happened, and then I can infer, using the intelligent design argument, that those things happened because of an intelligence behind it. I don't need to add anything to either. They're both already contained with that stuff.
I'm still not really connecting it like that, because I think the evidence itself would indicate if there was an intelligent agent who did it with a purpose, then I think the evidence would indicate more of a sort of a purposeful, like, let's say over a long period of time, the change of one species to another over a long period of time. I think the evidence itself would indicate that in some way, shape, or form, if it was from an intelligent agent who did it. I think the evidence itself would indicate that, but I mean, the evidence doesn't seem to indicate that, which is why we have two separate positions, which would be evolution versus intelligent design. If the evidence seemed to indicate that, then I think there would be a third position.
Yeah, I can assure you there is no conflict between the two positions. And I guess what I'm wondering is, if I'm saying I would be willing to accept, if you say, well, look, intelligent design says you look at, so first off, you look at evidence. You don't just sit back and wish the world were a certain way. You look at what you actually observe in the world: bees fertilizing flowers, water being drawn up plants, the fact that apes have speciated and separated into these different groups, including humans, which is just all, to me, that's just absolutely amazing. When you see those things, you know that it's not a random chance, and in fact, that's clear it's design, therefore there's an intelligence behind it. What I'm wondering, Antonio, is that uncomfortable for you? Is there something wrong in my position?
It's not that it's uncomfortable, but I mean, the idea of evolution doesn't happen with a purpose in mind. If you just throw an intelligent agent behind that, then I don't see how it's not adding to evolution. You know?
Okay. Oh, okay. I got it. I see what the problem is. I think what it is, you might be stuck on the idea that one of the tenets or axioms, like the very foundation of evolution, is the idea that there is no mind behind it, that it's a completely unguided random process. And what I'm saying is, is
that not? That's what it is.
No, definitely not. No. As I've said several times, it is simply a description of the mechanisms and processes that if the theory is true, would explain the observed diversity of life. But it says nothing about whether there's an intelligence behind it, or whether there's a plan, or whether there's a universe outside of our universe, like none of that stuff. And so it is not I want to say this super clearly. Creationism says there is definitely an intelligence behind reality, and a planning intelligence, a thoughtful, planning, guiding intelligence. Evolution doesn't say that there is a planning intelligence. It also doesn't say there isn't a planning intelligence. It is completely silent on the issue about a planning intelligence.
Well, then, to me, it seems to me all you'd be describing is another form of creationism.
When I say that I could accept both intelligent design and
it just seems to me it would just like be an expanded definition on the definition of creationism, like that God created these creatures with a certain intent and purpose in mind, but instead the creative mechanism that he did it with was evolution.
Yeah,
it seems like that would just be a different form of an expanded form of creationism.
Yeah, I think that's actually what they would call theistic evolution.
Right.
And again, that's to be totally different from like deistic evolution, where there was a God that just sort of like set the world in motion and then doesn't get involved. the idea of theism, well, I'm not trying to tell you what it is, I'm just trying to make sure we have the same understanding, is that there is a caring and interacting God, a God that I can connect with, I can form a personal relationship with, is a personal God. And I say that me, like I'm a flesh and bones creature here in the world right now, and however I came to be. I may be the descendants of two people who were created 6,000 years ago, or I may be the descendants of a troop of ancient apes from 8 million years ago. It doesn't matter. The point is I'm here now in flesh and blood, facing the world's challenges, and I need this creator in my life. And I think that's what the theistic evolutionists say, is that they say, well, yeah, we evolved from the ancient apes, but there is a God, and God still loves us.
Well, let's just pretend that I'm not a theist of whatever. If the evidence suggested that, I could say, well, maybe some intelligent agent, created it in this way by evolution. That's all I really get from that. I don't really get anything else other than that. I still don't get the point you're making.
Because if you're even slightly accepting, Antonio, of everything I just said, that would make you unique amongst your brothers and sisters. Because anyone else that I've suggested that to, that if I've said, yeah, I really like this intelligent design thing, and I'm impressed by the great design of the trees and the flowers and the bees and all of the hemoglobin and the ATP synthase and all that stuff, I'm impressed by that. I'm also impressed by the common ancestry. It's a shame Veckel stepped out. He's a good guy. At that point, they'll go, whoa, 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 and they will lose their minds at the suggestion that there is intelligence behind the speciation amongst apes to create humans. And the reason I point that out to people is because, again, it shows a dishonesty in their position, arguably not yours. If you're saying, look, that's not really a big issue and you're not stressed about it, then that's fine. But Antonio, you'd be surprised how often, like when I say, okay, I see where your argument goes, look at the evidence first, and then see the design in there. When I say, well, I look at the evidence that humans are a type of ape, and I think that's amazing, they will flip out on spot.
Well, from my personal theological position, I say that I'd have to look at the evidence and see how that consistently aligns. Well, let's say, I don't know, the Genesis account, because if I were to adopt that particular position you're talking about, then that would mean that I would have to see if there's a misunderstanding that I have in the Genesis account, because theistic evolutionists adopted more of a symbolic sort of representation of the Genesis account, not so much a literal one. So
yeah, they have a different symbolic representation of the Genesis account from evangelicals. Evangelicals choose a very different symbolic account instead of the literal one.
Some of the best theologians and theistic philosophers and other thinkers from Christianity, they see it as a metaphor. They don't take the Bible literally.
yeah, that's true.
Would it be inconsistent? What would it do to your belief in God if it was the case that God used evolution?
Well, I mean, all it would do for me is make me want to ask like certain questions. It would just be like, well, if this is the way he did it, and if it's true, then I would have to investigate a whole lot more. I would have to take a second look at certain things and how I believe certain things before, and it would require a whole nother scope of investigation that I had not considered before. Like, if I were to become a theistic evolutionist for the sake of argument, then that would mean that I'll have to look at the Genesis account to see if I have been interpreting this the wrong way. That's what that's what would follow. If I were to stay a Christian, then that would mean to see I'll have to look at what's in the Bible to see if it's consistent with my beliefs. It would require, another investigation into what I'm reading, and how I'm interpreting it, because I will have to have it, make it consistent with my beliefs if I want to logically stay a Christian. Because if for whatever reason it was inconsistent with my beliefs, then I would have to. If it was inconsistent, you see what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, I see what you're saying. The thing, like I said, great theistic thinkers like today are accept evolution, certainly accept not a literal interpretation of the Genesis account, and this isn't anything new. Like, I think there's even acceptance of just that the Bible is separated from science all the way back to the church fathers. Don't quote me on that. I need to look into it myself. But there's even quotes of John Calvin saying, if you're doing science or if you're doing astronomy, look elsewhere from the Bible. It's nothing new to have a Christian worldview and to accept evolution. There's a trend towards people in the philosophy of religion. People are trying to run what's called the fine-tuning argument. Are you familiar with that, Antonio?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah, I'm familiar with fine-tuning. What about it?
The issue with the fine-tuning argument is that it's actually in conflict with intelligent design. So one of the foremost proponents of the fine-tuning argument, Robin Collins, actually criticizes intelligent design. And the thing about it is fine-tuning is still used to talk about God creating the universe, all that stuff, but it's perfectly cool with accepting facts about biological sciences that pertain to evolution. If you want to affirm intelligent design and the fine-tuning argument at the same time, then some people think that is in contradiction, because fine-tuning is speaking to the fine-tuning of the laws of nature, the physical constants, and the front-loading of the universe. In that is evolution. Evolution is pivotal because evolution is what explains how our complex minds arose. So if you want to affirm intelligent design, you're actually in conflict with another argument, another more popular argument, which is the fine-tuning argument.
Well, wait a minute. Are you saying that that if there was a specific way that the universe was built in sort of a fine-tuned sort of mechanism that is in conflict with another design mechanism, which would be the intelligent design argument?
That's actually not. Intelligent design proponents have a lot of trouble articulating what the mechanism is for intelligent design. This is also an issue with the fine-tuner, but the thing is that the fine-tuning depends on what current science says about biology, chemistry, physics, geology, all that stuff, like star formation. It depends on what is the most up-to-date science in order to be considered, in order to be a part of the fine-tuning argument. And that entails the acceptance of evolutionary theory.
Well, whether the universe was finely tuned, whether the universe was finely tuned or not, I mean, it really, for me, what I'm positing is what is the best explanation. I mean, I don't really think that if I'm going to posit the possibility that God exists, I don't really think that an intelligent creator existed or whatever, I don't really think I have to give an argument for a fine tuning type thing or whatever. I just think all I need to do is just give the best explanation behind why we're here. I don't really think I need to focus on the fine tuning argument or anything like that. I don't really see how
I
that's
see.
relevant.
Okay. The relevancy of it is that that's considered a more persuasive argument because intelligent design has been knocked down by a whole bunch of other arguments. One of them I briefly mentioned, which is the fact that intelligent design doesn't offer any mechanism by which the intelligent designer designs things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not
Go
meant to
ahead.
offer a mechanism. That's the thing.
Well, how
I mean,
can it explain
nobody.
anything?
Oh, I laugh every time I hear that.
That's what I'm saying. It's not meant to offer a mechanism. I
You
mean,
can't.
people who believe that an intelligence is behind or is the best explanation for what we see in the world is not trying to argue how the mechanism creates something or what the mechanism was. That's not the point, and that's really has nothing to do or does not argue against a designer at all.
The
The
issue is
the
that
inability, even if I were to say, let's say somebody attempt to give a mechanism or try to explain the actual mechanism, and let's say they failed abysmally in doing so. The inability for them to logically explain the mechanism does not mean that there was no designer who used said mechanism, who used a mechanism, I should say.
but the issue with it is that it's competing with a theory that does posit a mechanism. It posits other mechanisms. It works with other mechanisms, in fact, and it's been successful in the other parts of the scientific enterprise. It makes prediction, it has fecundity, it has explanatory power, it fits well with our background knowledge. This isn't the case for intelligent design. And one of the ways that intelligent design would be able to compete with evolution by natural selection is for it to explain the mechanism. Because if you can explain the mechanism, then you can start making predictions with it.
Well, there's people who I don't pretend to argue intelligent design for whether it makes predictions or not because I haven't looked into it like that. But I think there's people who are way more qualified to argue, whether it makes predictions or not than I am. The only thing I'm saying is when people are looking at the intelligent design argument to take it a specific creator or whatever is intellectually dishonest because it's a misrepresentation of what the argument is. That's the only thing I'm saying.
There's something that is kind of a bummer about it. In the United States, we have our Constitution, we have the separation of church and state. The Dover trial made it the case that intelligent design cannot be taught in public schools. Now, the bummer is that people who are trying to get intelligent design into the sciences are also trying to make it appear as if it's not just creationism, or it's not just talking about a specific God, God of monotheism. But I don't really mind that it would posit the God of monotheism, and I think it would actually be better for intelligent. Well, not that much better, I suppose. But the thing is, if you posit intelligent design and you posit a designer that we know more about, you could start making more predictions. But the thing is that intelligent design, as a consequence of the Dover trial and the attempt to make it fit into a scientific methodology, has become just so staggeringly vague that it doesn't help explain anything and it doesn't make predictions.
Well,
None that I've been able to really understand.
Well, to me, the character or the goal behind why people have tried to present intelligent design or whatever other extenuating issues behind intelligent design, or why intelligent design has been presented, all that is really irrelevant to me in this particular conversation. I mean, I
Well,
I guess
I,
we could talk about that as a separate topic, but
well,
given
I thought that you. I'm sorry, but I thought you said that you think you didn't like how people were just saying you're pointing to the Christian God when you say.
well, all I'm saying is I think it's uh, dishonest to misrepresent the intelligent design as pointing to a specific creator in general, whether it's an alien and disembodied mind or any sort of deity at all. I think when they try to say it's trying to point to one specific intelligent creator, that's being dishonest and misrepresenting what the argument is. Now, all these other side issues about what's their intention behind trying to introduce design in schools or talking about the Dover trial. You can't. Can anyone else hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Haven't missed a beat. Joe, can you
Oh,
hear me? I think just Joe's sound. I can hear him. Can you hear me? Pardon the typing. That's rude, but I didn't hit the minute. Okay. Question mark. Oh yeah, off he goes. He's going to reset. I will say contentiously, I'll let him. You guys are in the middle of a discussion, so just to fill a little gap here, I'm going to say I'm
mhm,
yet to actually. He was saying about how some Christians, some theologians don't follow the Book of Genesis literally.
mhm.
That's to imply that maybe there are some who do. I am yet to meet a single person who believes the literal account from the Book of Genesis. But I don't want to
That's
interrupt now that Joe's
yeah,
back.
yeah. That's another discussion. I mean,
Okay.
the point of this hangout wasn't to go into these other sorts of discussions.
Okay.
Maybe in the future I'll have hangouts specifically talking about those.
Okay. Let's check Joe's sound here. Can't hear it all. Huh. I hope it's something in his computer and not in his actual head. He's gone suddenly deaf. Um, all right, we got your microphone now, Joe. We can hear you.
That's weird. I don't know.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry, man. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Um,
that happens to me sometimes too. G plus is kind of goofy like that.
yeah. So I heard nothing of what you just said. So maybe I'll sit back
Um,
and let.
Nope.
I understand. I lost
Yeah.
my train of thought. Uh,
Well, I tossed in a totally, well, not totally off topic. It was under the general umbrella comment, but it was, as I at the outset I said, it was just a time filler while we're waiting you to get your restart and your sound worked out. So I was quite happy to have you come back and stay on the same topic. Unless Antonio's got something else. I actually did something to say about the disembodied mind.
Did you bring that up? Because that was something I was gonna mention.
Yeah. Well, let me. You know what? I'll tell you what, why don't you let me make the point then, and then I just, as I said
Go ahead.
earlier, I'm going to step out. I was kind of half hoping Beckel would come back too. He and I sort of crossed paths and just never really get a chance to sort of go at it on air. But anyway, so I don't know how far I want to get into this, but so earlier I'd made the point about how I accept that when you hear the ID argument, it is simply, well, there's an intelligence behind it, and then stop. No, we don't want to discuss anything beyond that. Now, separate, just apart from that, you can say, well, don't you actually do believe in a disembodied mind, don't you? Well, yeah, I do, but that's not what the argument does. So if we want to keep the discussion in the confines of what ID actually says, then we shouldn't be saying, well, it leads to a disembodied argument. Sorry, disembodied. That was weird. Disembodied argument. I'm going to start using that. It leads to a disembodied mind, but then doesn't get there successfully because it doesn't intend to argue to a disembodied mind. So that's fine. I can accept that. But let's also recognize that's what's happened over the last few days specifically, and I really, 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 really hope the community doesn't get bogged down in this, is a discussion about the fallacy of division. And saying that what we have seen when we see, for example, motors being developed, that they're the only place we ever actually know the process, how motors come about, is through human enterprise. and therefore intelligence is necessary. And as well, you got to sort of flesh out that part in the middle. How do you go from there being, well, there's human enterprise to intelligence is necessary? There are lots of aspects of human enterprise that leads to the production of motors that a person can see as necessary, right? That if we didn't have the ability to communicate or the manufacture steel or whatever, there's lots of different things you could point to say, well, we just wouldn't have been able to make the manufactured motors we see today. So why pull out intelligence as being the thing that's necessary, and those other things aren't at all necessary? And I would say, unfortunately, it led to a discussion about, well, humans have hands. Therefore, well, why not pick out hands as being necessary? Because if we didn't have bodies, we wouldn't have been able to manufacture motors.
Right.
And that's part of what led us into the whole disembodied mind thing. And I don't know how much I want to say about this, because it just, to me, that was a point that just seems that we just haven't been able to discuss it sensibly. It just,
in certain ways, I would agree.
Yeah, just a big argument for nothing.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Yeah, there's really nothing much I can say, because I think you were spot on.
Yeah, I would like to see the argument. I know that
we agree too much, don't we?
Yeah, we do. It's you know what, Antonio, it's fun in its own way. When you did the hangout on my channel, I always made that joke about how we're boring the audience because we agree too much. But I would like to see. I know true empiricism often says he has an abductive argument that goes from the observations to the conclusion that intelligence is necessary, or a mind must be there for motors to exist. And he's thrown that promissory note out there a number of times, an IOU for IOU, one abductive argument, and I'm yet to actually hear from him what the abductive argument would be that takes us from the observation to the conclusion that a mind is necessary. And I do hope we get that someday. I'm not inclined to go into one of his hangouts just to be muted and shouted over when I'm trying to ask that question. That I would like to know what the argument actually is. But.
Well, maybe if you're interested in discussing it with him, maybe we can have it on my channel, and you won't be shut out. Maybe I can just moderate it. Would you be interested in that?
That would be a much better idea. In fact, a good enough idea. Yeah, I would show up for that.
Yeah, and for just for those who are listening, yeah, in the last hangout I was in with True Empiricism, in many ways I didn't conduct myself very, very well. It's very, very unbecoming of how I like to carry myself. There were certain things I didn't say, and I did a self-evaluation hang on this too. I looked at the because like when you're in the heat of the moment, a lot of the times you don't realize you do certain things, you act certain ways, and I looked at the hangout and played it back from start to finish, and then I was like, man, well, I shouldn't have said that right there. Oh, that was really bad, and I just kind of like made that like very clear. So it was sort of a trend that I wanted to see happen on G+, because I'm not saying anyone else hasn't done this, but I haven't seen, people kind of look back at their own, at hangouts they were in and kind of being like, well, man, I just shouldn't have said this, or maybe I did this right here. So I was doing sort of a self-evaluation and just kind of saying, man, like, ooh, I could have done much better than this, because the discussion got very, very heated, and I think there was a lot of chaos in that discussion happening from a lot of different people. But that being said, two wrongs don't make a right, and I didn't contribute very well to the discussion in certain aspects either. So
I'm going to say I thought you did fine. I do find that you sort of will follow the flow a little bit, like when people are sort of poo-pooing an atheist point. Well, no, you're one of the ones that are a little more inclined to say, well, no. At least you're the one to say, well, let him finish. You're one of the few people to stand up and say, well, why don't you let him finish making his point, and then you can tell him how he's wrong, which I think should almost be a slogan, a motto here for our hangouts.
Yeah.
I think, I listened again. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I got bits and pieces of it. I think that you had things to say that you didn't get a chance to say, and you're a bit of a victim to when you're interrupted. You might forget what you're going to say. There's one moment in there that I laughed at. I know it's probably not funny, but I just have to admit, it's sort of like you're laughing at somebody when they trip or something. Like you kind of feel like, oh, better him than me. But there was a moment where you insisted. You were like, just let me finish. Let me finish. If you do that, I'm going to forget my point. Let me finish. And then everybody went quiet, and you went, I forgot my point after all this. I'm just going to mute my microphone. And I went, oh, man. I've had that happen where you've had to like elbow your way in to get time on the mic, and then all of a sudden you go, what was I going to say? You bunch of jerks.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be frustrated and turn that frustration into anger, but you did the right thing by just getting calm and just telling people, if that's how it's going to be, I'm going to mute my mic for a minute. And you did calm yourself down, which it's a rarity. I wish more people could do that.
It's interesting you bring that up, because what happened was I was trying to make a point, I got interrupted, and I was like, man, I'm gonna just mute myself before I go off on somebody. That's what I said. It was a very, very chaotic hangout, and again, I think I see Joe's comment here. I appreciate that, man. It's all good, but it was chaotic in so many circles, and I definitely did not help. But I did try to kind of calm myself down, and it actually ended very, very productive, because it seemed to be more fluid at the second half, but the first half was just, oh man, that was a complete catastrophe. And a few people pointed this out to me. Hannah pointed this out to me. Even at the time, Joe pointed it out to me, and who else? Fiona pointed it out to me, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to look at this to see if there are certain things that I missed, and I'm like, well, dang, that was right. Yeah, I was pretty bad. But that being said, I did try to conduct myself a bit better at the second one, and I think I did do that. But I just want to set a trend, for people to just sort of look at, how they do in hangouts. Look at, if a hangout gets heated and someone was saying you did this or whatever, just look and see if that's the way it happened, and be honest about it. And I hope to see more of that on G+, because I don't think there's too many people who's going to do an honest self-evaluation. I don't think that's going to happen very often.
I do. As much as possible, I try to listen to myself in Hangouts and try to see, I could have shortened that up a bit, or I interrupted that person too much, or I missed that guy's point. I try to be pretty critical about it. But just on your point about what you kind of see for the discussions, I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to say my good nights. As I say, we're past midnight here and a bit of a long day coming up. But this might not be so much a prediction as it is wishful thinking. I'm starting to see more people starting Hangouts or getting more active hosting on their own channel, with the observation, look, I'm getting kind of tired of the shouty, muty, over-talky, kicky-outy type Hangouts.
Yeah.
And, we're always going to have, I see, for example, that the evangelicals are less inclined to go into J.D. Kane's Hangouts because he's got the reputation of not letting them get their, I sort of disagree with that. I think he kind of lets them get their words out, but then he also lets everybody kind of pounce on them a little bit. And it's hard when it's, a 9-to-1 situation. But then we've got, on the other side of it, we've got the Nephilim Free Hangouts and the True Empiricism Hangouts, where the clear purpose is to sort of, carve out one non-believer, and preferably somebody who isn't that well versed on a particular topic, and then ask the person a question and then mute them halfway through their answer, and and then the shouting and everything else like that. I think, and we're already seeing lots of non-believers, especially the people that do Hangouts regularly, like me, just don't see that as appealing. Just forget it. I'm not going to bother doing that. If that's considered, that's not even a conversation. How do you consider that a conversation? That's not even conversation. It's not worth me clicking the link and logging into that sort of thing. But I hear you do these Hangouts. I've seen you do lots of them. And I recently caught Tommy Hall had done one where that was kind of his opening comments about, I'd like to see more of a discussion kind of thing. I will say I also think Steve McRae, that was kind of his big motivation to start hosting Hangouts, was to say, we'll come in. If you want to talk about something, that's what we'll talk about. People are going to be able to say what they're saying and to make sure to get their point out. If you need to screen share something to illustrate your point, then we'll screen share you and present you, and people aren't going to talk while you're doing that. I think we're going to see a trend for sort of growth of that type of hangout, or at least I hope that's the case.
Yeah, me too, man. Because I think what's happening in a lot of these hangouts, and I mean, and I think everybody's guilty of it to a greater or lesser extent. What's happening in a lot of these hangouts is, certain presuppositions are being brought, and the way in how people respond is being carried, inherent in those presuppositions, and and because of such, people will respond in a certain way, or people will react in a certain way. And I think whether you have certain presuppositions or whatever, you still got. I mean, there's certain things that has nothing to do with your presuppositions that can make the discussion more fluid. Let people finish what they're saying. I mean, I guess every once in a while, maybe to try to stop somebody, or maybe coming in between while someone is talking every once in a while isn't such a bad thing. But constant interruptions, you got to stop that. You got to listen to what somebody is saying. There's just certain things that have nothing to do with your presuppositions that make the discussion, that can make or break a discussion. And I think the problem is they're and again, I think that was what was happening in True's Hangout. The first half that was so chaotic. I think what was happening is people will make a certain point, and a person will have a presupposition in their mind, and then they'll disagree with what that person is saying, and then they will cut them off rather than let them finish, because ultimately we're going to believe certain things what we want at the end of the day. But if you can at least learn to put your not put your presuppositions aside, but at least show some sort of class and letting somebody talk and letting somebody finish, or if you can't at least do the basics right there, then it's probably best that you don't even join the discussion at all and just listen.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are coming up short in basic courtesy, and I worry at times it's because of we've lost basic respect. There are many people who simply, I don't respect that other person. I don't care to sort of treat them with even good manners. And actually, I want to cycle back to your point about the presuppositions. It is funny when you go back and you listen to a hangout, even when you'd been in, sometimes you miss stuff. But that in that one there was on Ronnie's there was part there. I think there's a fellow there, Nat, who's making some point, and then suddenly Ronnie just says, "Well, so what you're saying is that the ATP synthase is not a motor? Well, you'd have to prove that. Like I want you to justify that right now, that ATP synthase is not a motor." And I had to back it up and listen a little bit to go, where did this guy say that it wasn't a motor? He was arguing something about the purpose of some subunit. I don't remember what it was now, but he never said that it wasn't a motor. And yet he was being pushed for the proof that he had to demonstrate or justify that it wasn't a motor. And I just thought, like, where did that come from? And I think that's an example of where...
Yeah, I got to go look at that again, but man, if what you're saying is true, then yeah, I would have to be like, "Hey, True, what was going on? Going on, man?"
It's funny, that sort of thing gets momentum too, and I think that this Nat fellow actually wasn't that experienced at hangouts. Like, one thing I've really learned to be attentive for is that when somebody demands evidence, or when they say, "So what you're saying is this," and there are a few people on here who will, when you're talking to them, you'll say something. And I tend to be a big victim to this, by the way, partly because I'm a bit of a long talker. I'm on the mic too long. So the person's listening and they're trying to say, okay, what is this guy's point? Where's he going with this? And then they get impatient and they just fill in the blanks. They say, oh, well, I know where he's going with this. I really have trouble in conversations with Neff because of this. I'll be 2 sentences into what I'm saying, and then he'll go, oh, so what you're saying is X, Y, Z, boom, like that. And he just all of a sudden he knows what I'm going to say. And then this is why it's wrong, because X is this, and then Y is that, and Z is, and you go, hold on, F, that's not what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. No, don't interrupt. Let me finish. And he'll go on an 8-minute rebuttal of X, Y, and Z because he thinks that's what I was going to say. And you're just like, it gets tough. But
Yeah. I think a lot of people brought that to his attention. I think he's getting better on keeping his responses more short. But yeah, you do gotta let people say their entire statements because I mean, I think the problem is like you'll have people that's been in tons of discussions like Nephilim, and then he'll think that he's heard a certain objection so many times, and he'll kind of assume that's what's going to be said for the next person. You can't do that, man.
Yeah, well, actually, I'll side with him a little bit on this one because that's one thing I struggle with is that when somebody says something, and then you immediately go, I've heard this before, and a lot of times that is where the person's going. But the polite thing to do is to let them explain it and let him explain it, and then now you can go on to the rebuttal to that. But it's very hard to go, like, you're using a transcendental argument? Yeah, I know it. So let me rebut it right now. Like, don't even give the person a chance to explain their understanding of it. You just, charge into it. It is a little frustrating, even more frustrating, of course, when you're wrong about it, when you actually misguessed what the person was going to say. But that's a bit of a different issue.
Absolutely. Well, man, at this point, I think we've pretty much gotten to the end of the hangout anyway. I think a lot of productivity happened in this hangout. I want to thank you coming in here, Hogtie, HAF, Joe, and I know you didn't say anything, Stevie, but I still appreciate you coming in here, man.
Oh, Stevie.
Okay. I don't know if he's even listening right now, but anyway, I appreciate you boys coming in here.
I appreciate you having a good room for stuff like this. So yeah, you guys have a good night.
All right. You too. God bless everybody. Thanks for watching. Take care.